But this is more about our children. They're your great grandchildren, your mothers, your fathers, your uncles, your friends, everyone that you love on this planet. This can affect any one of you. And that's why now's the time to rise up. Right.
Whew, wow. Wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow. So I have quite a bit of questions. And also, I mean, before we even begin, I want to express to people that don't take this all as a fearful thing. Like, do not let fear overcome you, because when you're looking at things like this, it can happen very easily. You just start looking around your shoulder like, I know, I've been there. I assure you, I understand. Fear will only put you in a vibration that's going to put you in a place where you cannot attack this or work with this or figure it out. So take this only as, like you said, information. Information. Be aware. Awareness is very important. You can be aware and not afraid. So before we even get into the questions, I just want you to just get rid of that whole fear, get rid of it if you're feeling it, and know that you are protected. Ultimately, you are protected. So there's so many things to hit on here. I, 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 okay, in a few sentences, because I mean, for some people, and I mean, I myself, ever since COVID, I have friends who are chemists who call me saying that they have brain fog. Um, and so this is a big thing. It doesn't have to be that everybody's implanted. It could just be the jabs, because that, those are people who had gotten the jab who were calling me saying that. So that's a big thing as well. But I know that my intellect has decreased substantially, and it's not just aging. And I can't, I, who knows where it's coming from, but I can say that I've experienced that. In a few sentences, for people who might not have been able to follow all of what you said, what is happening and who
Okay.
is doing this?
Yeah. Well, Colonel Egren, in one of the specific cases that was classified, but some of the information was released, said it was the Russians, and they did um, capture a team who was using directed energy weapons, so aiming a weapon at certain individuals. But that's not really the case. What the case is because this is happening globally. I believe strongly that the evidence is showing, at least back in 2009, 10, all the way 2015, 16, I think we were in an experimental phase. Now I think we're in an all-out arms race. President Putin gave a presentation to the Politico, and when they interviewed him, he said the first superpower to master psychotronic weapons will be the superpower to master the world. Okay. That's why I strongly believe now we're in an arms race. The United States has this technology. Russia has the technology. China has the technology. The UK has the technology. And I believe India does. That's what we're dealing with. The problem that we're dealing with also is that if you were afflicted by this 20, 30 years ago, you're in luck because the technology is probably large enough that you can pick up on an MRI scan or an X-ray. Now, remember late 2000s, they were down to the size of 2 letters on a penny. Now we're dealing with nanotechnology. And nanotech, they've created these things called nano barrels. So it's no different than a cart on a train, where if you can picture one of those train carts being a nano barrel, and then you put stuff inside of it. And then they've put a derivative in it that if you send a certain frequency to it, it will explode and release what it contains. In the documentation that I leave with your audience, you can read through all of it. It's there. These are all research universities who have developed this technology, and they explain exactly what can be done with it. Now, I did an interview with a very, very bright young lady. It was called the Celestial Report. And when I shared this evidence with her, she informed me that in the late 90s, early 2000s, they redefined the rule of law, what the definition of human is. And the reason this was important is because she said, with the advent of this nanotechnology and the research documents that I'm referring to, that you have access to, say that they can change a species within 6 generations with it. I've had some physicians who are very, very bright say that you can do it in 1 generation. So what does that mean? If you are no longer defined as human, then what? What do the laws allow corporations or governments in control to do? Can they get a patent on you? Now, you want to talk about ultimate control and ultimate slavery? No one's immune to this. We're all in this together now. So it's important that we all unify. This divide and conquer mentality, and this has been constructed, isn't working. And we all bleed, breathe the same. And we're all unique in beautiful ways. But it's important that you get in touch with that inner spirit, that inner voice, know what that is in you. Identify that now and early as you can. And develop that relationship with that inner spirit, your moral compass, because that's the first line of defense, is awareness. And once you can identify that, now, because remember, they can send subliminal message to you. They can get someone who's highly suggestible to do things they wouldn't normally do. And even if you're not highly suggestible, but let's say you're moderately suggestible and average suggestibility, if they induce stress on you, like I always wondered why single, widowed, or recently divorced, that's a very stressful time. You're most vulnerable to be programmed during those times when you're in altered states.
Mm. Oh my God. I this from another video, but one person said that they literally saw that on their report that whether you had the job or not, you were considered human or other. Like there's a correlation there. I just want to make sure. I mean, I don't know. Try to get the information and send it to you. But when you said that, that just sparked that into my head. I was like, oh my God, maybe that was the whole reason for what we just went through the last 4 years. Like maybe they were trying to ensure that a good portion of the population could no longer be considered human. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would love to see that. I will
Yes.
say this, that this nanotech is now being marketed as being something cool. You're seeing it in makeup derivatives. You're seeing it in medications. It's everywhere. But recently there was a study where they looked at the lidocaine derivative that you get when you go to the dentist. And within it, there's nanotech within the medium under the microscope, evenly dispersed, just dots everywhere. When it's exposed to RF radiation, it's self-assembled into a microchip array, into a square microchip. And that's all you need. The stuff is controlled by radio frequencies. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. And technology and laws have not kept up with each other. And this is why this is our fight, to get out there, educate the populations. Everyone, I don't care who you are. It's important that you all are informed, that we all are informed, so that we can have some serious discussions on how we address this.
It sounds like a lot of this is geared towards that transhumanism timeline that they're trying to push on humanity. And I just want to mention to people that, and this is connected to what you just said about how they're putting it in all these like glamorous, like literally glamorous with the cosmetics and stuff. Laziness kills. Laziness kills. The people that just think about the people in your life who were running to go get the job, or who were running to get the next tech, or running to get the next iPhone or this or that, whatever. The people who want that ease of life, that's one of the key, marketing. That's how they get you. If you want everything to be easy, AI is going to make everything so much easier. I don't have to write that whole essay. I can just click a button. Da 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 da. That's how they get you. So know that we're going to come across a lot of things that are going to seem very appealing, because it's just going to make your life so much easier. But at the same time, you're giving away your power and literally becoming enslaved. What they did to these to the prisoners, that in itself is just a whole nother conversation. Like I can't even imagine that they can do this, but I Googled it. I very quickly
Hati,
Googled.
I want to
Okay.
share something with you.
Okay.
That happened in California. I contacted the ACLU in California, said, look, I have the smoking gun. They're doing this non-consensually to prisoners. And I can tell you they're doing it to private citizens outside of the prison system. And I go, we have the documentation and the proof. You know what they did? They said, we can't help you.
Mm. And so, I mean, it just seems impossible at this point, but I'm glad that you're doing the work that you're doing, and we'll get into that at the end. But I even Googled because I was like, okay, I need to understand if this is even possible. Like, why would this be possible? Is this even like legally possible? And I Googled the state that I currently am in because I left my state because of, being bombarded by the local and state and maybe even the military at one point. So I'm very keen. Like I understand this. Some people might look at this like this is sci-fi. I've lived a life in the last 4 years that shows me that everything that you have said is completely possible. Just letting people know, 100% possible. Um,
But
but
we
I
have the
Googled
evidence
it.
here.
Yes,
We have the evidence. It's in your face.
yes.
So, we
It's
can
just
no longer
scary
put
to
our heads
look
in the
at.
sand.
It's
Yeah.
scary to look at. So most people, like I said, that's why I started with don't be fearful. You look at this and it terrifies you. And what people don't understand is that if it's power in unity. If more people, if everybody, yes, if one or two people are doing this, yes, they can get you. Like this is a known fact. You start talking about things they don't want you to talk about or there's money involved, they will get you. If everybody stands up, if the people who are putting their head in the sand because they're afraid, if they finally say, you know what, this is affecting not only, if it's not affecting me, it's affecting people I love. So you just start to just realize that and just say the hell with fear and you stand in your own power. We all come together. There is nothing they can do. Absolutely nothing. 100% nothing. The reason why we are in this state right now, or any of the states, if you watch any of these quote unquote conspiracies, and you're like, how do we get through this? This is so impossible, blah, blah. We are in this state because of the people who are afraid. The moment that you are too afraid to look into the study, to look into if this is possible, if you are the one of the people who are going to comment and say this is BS, this is hokey pokey, whatever, you are part of the problem. You are the reason why this is continuing. I wasn't even looking for this. I was literally finding images for another video that I had done. And I came across a November 2024, yes, November 2024 article saying that Trump wanted to bring back mental institutions. And then you take that and you add up the fact that he was supported by private prisons during this last election, and that they stand to gain a lot. I guess he's putting money or support into creating more private prisons. Put all that together, because we're talking about people who forget the common citizen or the diplomats or the people who have are the best of the best, what you said, that they are targeting with this. When you clearly now, when you are in the prison system or in a mental institution, you are fair game, it appears, right? Like fair game.
Well, our most vulnerable are who? The elderly, the incarcerated, and those who have been deemed mentally ill. I can tell you that we're crossing our fingers because we've been working with individuals who are high up in the government, not this previous administration, because they weren't very helpful across the board. Uh, there are no resources for civilians. They don't want to even hear it. They'll thumb your nose at it. But and we'll see, but it's important that everyone bands together regardless of what happens. That RFK, if he's going to stir it up and he's going to allow us to really look at these medications and what's being put in them, this is our prime opportunity. And regardless of what your political belief system was, it's now imperative more than anything that we band together and we disseminate a very common message that you can't do this to us, although we probably have already. But this is more about our children. They're your great grandchildren, your mothers, your fathers, your uncles, your friends, everyone that you love on this planet. This can affect any one of you. And that's why now's the time to rise up.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to probably push it towards getting into the ethnographic, I guess, stats that you said you had. I don't believe that any government anywhere on this planet will be supportive of this research. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not in their best
No.
interest. They're all too interconnected, and there's too much money at hand. Incoming, politician was supported by private prisons. If he was supported by the private prisons who are clearly doing this and have been doing this for decades, why in
We
the
have to
world
keep
would
an
he
eye on
allow?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. If anything, it might get much, much worse. I was watching your previous interviews. I was thinking, okay, here we go again. And you mentioned in some of your previous interviews the Tuskegee, situation where they
Experiments. Yeah. Yes.
experiments and stuff. So we
Hmm.
we have a history as African Americans. I would assume Native Americans as well. But as the group that is, marginal in this country for different reasons, that you would be used as a lab rat or a guinea pig. And we have had that. We've had some serious situations, and you can just Google and quickly see a bunch of crazy out of this world stories. We also, because of the fact that we are targeted by the police and military and the government, fill the prison systems much more than any other race. And so even that right there just puts us in a place where we are going to be implanted and we're being affected by this heavily, much more than others. But I was surprised to hear that it's not, like you said, going from the Midwest and onward up until Chicago. First group is a white females. And from
Yeah.
my experience, I always assume they're not ever touching a white female, like they're protected, like just from my own personal experience, like, oh no, like that's the
Hmm.
last person they're going to mess with. So this really makes me wonder who is really behind this, because generally the people who run this country, and let's just be 100% real, the people who run this country are majority white, and that's because it's a majority white country. You look at the stats. I looked at the census stats. I'll put them up, and that's who runs this country. For them to do it to their own, like generally that's not what's done. It's just not heard of. They don't police their own for the most part. I've seen that with my own eyes. Why would they be doing this to their own? Like this. So again, I'm starting to question, like, and I don't know how far out of the box you get. Who is really behind this? So here's a question I have. Is there any connection between this tech and reverse engineered alien tech?
First, that I believe we're in a class war. I don't think it's a race war anymore. I believe it's a
Oh.
class war. Okay. So that's first and foremost. So who is doing this? It has to. I can say this. I'm, I guess, what you would call a semi-educated Hispanic from the hood. Okay. And when I grew up, there was no such thing as color. It was about where you were from. Okay. And that being said, what I would say is, as far as why this is being done, I think it's to divide and conquer. It's all about control, right? As long as you can control the underclassmen or people, then it leaves you power, and power equals money and wealth. So you have this elite group. Now, I'm just some little Hispanic from the hood in Oak Park, California. Well, would you believe it if I said that the head doctor of a three-letter agency called me because of
Mm.
my work? And the only reason they called me was because we were pulling out implants.
Mm.
And it was inferred that maybe I was looking for recognition, which is not what I want. In fact, this is the most uncomfortable position to be in right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be out there like that, but I have no choice because the communities needed someone, and I'm not saying I'm anyone special because I'm not. I hate being here, but someone who could disseminate the information in a logical way that the general population can understand and say, oh, wow, instead of just keeping the communities under an umbrella and everyone thinks they're tinfoil hat crazies. We needed a way to intercede and get into that. And so, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, what does this mean? This divide and conquer mentality has been going on for a long time. If you keep people separate and you keep the peons fighting amongst each other and wanting more protection and wanting more resources and the government to give that to them, you're completely giving up your autonomy, your free will. And the planet is overpopulated. There's talk that this is a depopulation agenda. But ultimately, if you remember, they said they can imprint memory sets. What does that mean? That means that they can imprint false memories in you. You can, once that's imprinted, and I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a hypnotist. You can do that with someone without the tech. But if you have the tech and you have the knowledge and the ability to imprint false memory sets into people, belief systems, how powerful of a tool that could be. So you talk about the UFO phenomenon. Do we have people who claim they're being abducted and implants been removed out of them? Absolutely. Dr. Lear. Look at all the surgeries he did from people who believe that they were abducted and pulling out implants. The MyLab phenomenon, those who believe that they were abducted by the military and implanted, implants being removed out of them. And now we have the AHI or the Havana syndrome victims. But guess what? All these implants all trace back to a biomedical company, a corporation. You got Raytheon, you have BlackRock out there, you have IBM, who's throughout history has done this to humans. And that's what we're dealing with. This is why we all need to band together. It's time to stop the divide and conquer.
Yes, I agree. And that IBM report freaked me out because I used to work for one of their competitors, and I can only imagine what, I mean, granted, I'm not an engineer, but I supported most likely something that was doing this as well. I'm pretty sure if they're into it, the company I worked for has a part in all that. And one very important question I have to make sure I don't forget is about HARP, because I looked into HARP, and I really do I experiment with frequency. I know the power of frequency. So I can only imagine that HARP can be used for mind control. Is there any connection between HARP and what you're seeing with these implants?
But I can only testify to what I know is fact. There is a gentleman out there, his name is Eric Hecker, who claims he was a firefighter, although I reached out to him, and he has this aversion to hypnotherapists. But it's kind of odd because in the fire service, whether your brother and sisters are brother and sisters, no matter what they do, you never turn your back to them. You at least engage. But for some reason, he's had an aversion to speaking to me. But he claims that he works down in Antarctica at a facility where this signal is being transmitted from. And I found it interesting that Colonel Egrin testified that this is happening on every continent except Antarctica. And then you have this supposed firefighter down there who is making these claims. He's been on the Joe Rogan show. He's been on he's out there. He's very popular right now. But I'd love to talk to him if he's listening, because I'd like to have some very intellectual conversations about what he's saying. But the point is the fact is this technology exists. There are patents. We now have the smoking gun. We have the declassified reports. I have a declassified report that says the Vacaville president was doing this in the 70s and already able to remotely see what is going on, the thoughts of a person, what they were doing remotely.
Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure I mention that this is something that people probably felt really crazy about and they didn't mention it. But I think we've all seen that meme where they're talking about, oh, I just thought about something and I saw an ad for Amazon or something about that. So I think it's something that finally enough people are experiencing, enough people have put it out there. It's all about awareness and putting it out there that people now feel more comfortable saying, yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot more people mention that, yes, they're following our thoughts. They're definitely data mining somehow.
Well, you remind me of something in 2005 when then Senator Biden was confirming Edwards. Biden says this, and these were exact words. He goes, you mark my words, during your lifetime, you're going to have to decide whether or not it's constitutional to put a microchip in the human body. During that confirmation, he says it. And then you have Francis Collins, who talks about UBOs, unidentified bright objects, at the Presidential Bioethics Commission under President Obama, who talks about a UBO. Do you want one in your brain? Well, you might. And he talks about these bright objects are being found in MRI scans, but they don't know what to do about it. He says, depending on what your propensity is, or who decides what you are, you get the chip to be a sanitarian technician, a police officer, a doctor, a scientist. This is what they're talking about. And this was back in 2005.
Yes. And I mean, we can't go into it in depth here, but I want people to really stop and think about, like, just if this is real, if this is possible, just the tech, forget what's happening, because we know, if you're smart enough, you know that the government will do what it will do, right? And private organizations will do what they do. But if the tech is possible, just really just meditate on that. And then what that means, like what that really branches out to, because you can use it for so many different reasons. They always try to say it's for help. Oh, we're using it on the prisoners so we can make sure we can stop aggression or crime or violent crimes, et cetera. They always start with that. But they can get people, so my God, I mean, you can change history. They already try to do it already anyway, but not teaching certain things. But you can literally change history, or you can mess with somebody's memories. You can change the whole, you can use it for, for politicians can use it to win elections. Like, really think about that. Or 30% of the population, that's enough to get the vote. You know what I mean? So, I mean, this can be being used right now for things that we're not aware of that just don't make any sense. And it's just, if you let it get past this point, I think we're already maybe even past the breaking point, but it also makes me think about a lot of the vets that come back with supposed shell shock. Like, I've seen some really bizarre videos of people acting out, and it's like, okay, did they really go crazy, or do they have implants?
Well, we have a special case right now. He is a special forces guy, and he had this sudden loss of time and started having these weird auditory experiences. So he said, why don't we just scan you? And he came up positive, to my surprise. Then we sent him to the nonlinear junction scan. He lit up in 6 areas. Here's what was crazy about his situation. The frequency that we detected had not been detected in 20 years. But when we tried to see who owned the leasing on it, we thought it was going to be the United States. It wasn't. It was actually NATO. We have a case like that, and there's another famous doctor out there who explores this phenomenon, and he has a case like that. So why in the heck would NATO own the frequencies emitting from one of our special forces guys? It doesn't make sense unless there's a bigger agenda.
Yes. And just to ask a question, I hope it's not a really incredibly stupid question, but I think it has to be made clear really quickly, is that it's not the point of the frequency being emitted. The frequency is a side effect of this chip that is in the body, correct?
Frequency is the trigger. It's like pulling the trigger on the gun. That microchip is just let's say the message that says, here I am, come to me. That's what it is. And then whoever's on the opposite end is actually pulling that trigger, but the frequency would be more like the bullet is how we would describe it. Yeah.
Okay. And for 2 very important questions, or at least I think they're important questions. How can someone know if they are more susceptible? Because I think I saw on your website that you have a Q&A, but just if you can just in a few words explain to somebody how they might know that they might be part of that 30%. And then how do they change that?
Yeah. Well, thank God through hypnotherapy, self-hypnosis, you can change your suggestibility to be more normal, using your critical thinking factors and identifying what your true inner voice is. So those are the things that hypnotherapy can help with. But your suggestibility is really dictated from childhood. So if you had a very loving, affectionate mother versus a very strict, unaffectionate mother, and the same goes for affectionate father versus unaffectionate father, or are they both the same types? Usually they're opposites. but that environment will dictate your suggestibility. What will enhance your suggestibility is if you were brought up in an abusive environment, in any way, shape, or form, traumas, those will all be factors that will dictate your suggestibility. Particularly if you had traumas during childhood, that is probably a big indicator that you might score it a little bit higher. Now, if you take our free suggestibility quiz at mindnexuslive.com, if you test high, we'll reach, now, granted, give us some time because there's thousands of inquiries now. And then we'll give you a secondary test just to see, reaffirm that, because sometimes you could have been having a bad day, stressful day, and so it will fluctuate. But what we're more concerned about is if you're always up at the top or near somnambulism, which is 100% suggestible.
Hmm. I know that you mentioned how some of these people's biosensors were detected. Can you give me just a couple of like possibilities? Like, how are people getting implanted outside of people who are in the institution or in prisons? How are just lay people, regular people, being implanted by these biosensors?
So I will say this, that now we're starting to test the general population. I was invited to a group in California, and he was a music mogul who, and he was the head of a business group. They were all African Americans, and he asked if I would come and just test them, and I said, okay. I didn't expect to find anything. I said, sure, I'm more than happy to do this for you guys. And what I was surprised at is that those who were in the military were coming up positive there with no complaints. And then, to my surprise, certain individuals and a couple of ladies there did come up positive in two areas only, right or left shoulder. And I asked, what did you have there? No, all I've had was a shot. And then they had some anomalies. One was in a hip, one was in a knee. But I said, did you have anything in there? Well, I had a surgery. So you're asking how that's done? Well, most of these are being done with the needle. But now that we're at the advent of nanotech, you can ingest it, you can inhale it. That's where we're at.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm like in shock. So okay. I think that's the bulk of my question. Let me see. Da, 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 da.
I want to close with something. I do want to close with
Yeah.
something. So for everyone out there, a lot of this information is shocking, especially if it's the first time you've heard it. But I don't know if you've seen any of my, well, you saw the Jeff Mara, and I had an NDE experience when I was a young man. And for whatever reason, I'm here. I will say this, that I think our Lord and Savior is the ultimate programmer in the end, regardless of how smart these people think they are. I think they're going to be blindsided when they find out that they're not going to be smarter than our Creator, and that in the end, I think our Creator is going to just show everyone how precious and victorious we are to be underneath Him.
I'm so glad you asked that because I was going to say we have to end on a positive note so people don't freak out and just know that for the most part, like you said, awareness is the biggest thing. Just first getting everybody on the same board where they believe this is possible and believe this is happening. Once you do that, then we can start making next steps. Like, what do we do now? But and I love the fact that you're also saying that we have to come together. It really is divide and conquer. If we keep basing all of our separate, being separate because of race and color and sexual orientation and this and that and all these different things, we are making it so much easier for these monsters to just keep using us as lab rats. If you're tired of being used as a lab rat, if you're tired of other people being used as a lab rat, then start loving everybody. Start uniting with everybody. Once we are one and we're not talking about red or blue or purple or green or black and white, then they can't do but too much. So we have to like forget about really next steps about, okay, we need to talk to this person, we need to do this and come together. Just start loving everybody and then start healing. Another big thing that I'm seeing in this is that healing, the really small things, like what an individual person watching this can do to help avoid this. if you're coming from a background where you're susceptible because of the trauma that someone else put on you, start healing, start doing the work to heal yourself so that you become less suggestible. How do people connect with you? How do they contact you? How do they, just give me all your spill and then we'll close with that.
Yeah. So if you think that this may be happening to you, we are now, we're filling up very fast. So again, be patient. Doing what I would suggest is get a preliminary RF scan scheduled. We can either fly. I'm in Reno, Nevada. And then if you come up positive, then we'll have to send you to get a nonlinear junction scan, and that one's being done at a facility in Utah. Currently working out some terms to see if we can get it here closer. But that is the first thing you're going to want to do. Now, if outside of that, if you're looking if you think you're highly suggestible and you want to work on that, you can contact me at mindbridgehypnosis.com. And then the nice thing about that is I don't have to see you in person. Zoom has been great. We can do therapy sessions over Zoom. But most importantly, mindnexuslive.com. That's probably where you want to start. Get on our mailing list so we can tell you events. We're going to start doing scanning clinics. There's a group in Carolina who wants me to come up pretty soon. So we're going to be doing things like that too. So if you can get enough people that need to get scanned, then we can fly to you.
Awesome, awesome. And again, just to leave it on a positive note, like just to reiterate to everybody that, creator, however you name that being that created all of us, created even these monsters, like there's a purpose and a reason for this life, right? They're the catalyst, they're the illusion, they're the problem or the obstacle you have to jump over and get over that hurdle. And this is just another one of those hurdles. But we only get over that hurdle if we work together, love together, and unite. So, and don't fear, never fear, never fear. So
Yeah.
let's just leave it at that. But thank you so much, Jesse, for your work.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your work. And I send you protection and divine love. And I thank you so much because it's not an easy road that you're traveling and you're doing a lot to help.
Thank you. And thank you for the platform.